And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Dunlop, and welcome to Session 7 of our presentation of the Power PixelPoint system. So we're into the second half of the course, and welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience as well. For those of you who did not celebrate the Thanksgiving week, those of us in the United States certainly did, and we appreciate that nonetheless. So what we're going to do is pick up where we left off. All right, now, you may recall within the last presentation that we did, we were way over on the Members VIP pull-down menu. And I covered off pretty well everything in there with the exception of the one biggie, just because I ran out of time, and that was, of course, Member Setup. So what we're going to do today is pick up where I left off, and that will be within Member Setup. Now, before I actually get into this, what I'd like to do here, check some messages here. Yeah, okay, I think everything is good. All right, and what I want to do before getting into members, I just want to kind of point out a little something here. If you go over to the Administrator pull-down menu and we come down to Policy Setup, within here, there may be some settings at some time or another that you may want to apply pertaining to members. And like I've shown you before, and I'll show you again, is that if there is anything that you want to or may think you might need to apply, just put in the keyword for it. So can we come down here to Find, for example, select on this, and I come up with a search window for all the policies that we have on the system. And in here I'm going to put in the word member. I'll select on OK. And what this will do is this will take us through all of the different policies that have the word member applied to it, and there may be some things that you want to take a look at. For example, we have Pixel Map Interface, and this all has to do with the map point 2006 right there. So if you are setting up with any kind of interface to that, then you would also have to activate this as well. Coming down to next, we have some other stuff pertaining to loyalty for expired members as well, and as far as their loyalty points and whether they can keep them or not. We also have deliver XML on driver out. Okay, this has to do with the driver in, driver out functionality for making deliveries. And on here, whether the driver out should be in an XML format so that you can export that out. All right, the next thing we also have is member swipe as well. And so on here, if the swipe card begins in a different prefix, then you can do some stuff to fix that up. Also, we have prompt enforce member as well. Now, this can be applied where you want to prompt the enforcement of applying a member to a transaction before you can move on to within the transaction. It requires the member right up front. Also within here, similar to that as well, is quick member. So if there is going to be a member applied to the system, you can actually have the system auto default to one of the forms of retrieving a member, such as a swipe card, last name lookup, or a phone number, for example. We also have this one here, required member fields as well. So within here you can identify as far as specific fields that you want applied within the member database that are considered mandatory or required. Show member ship to info. I've activated this, and this is one of the things we're going to take a look at within today's presentation. This will bring up a whole new tab, both within the front end and the back end, pertaining to ship to addresses as well. So a member can have multiple ship to addresses or multiple addresses. That matter. Also, touch member editing as well. Right, so this will automatically present like a keyboard up on the screen when you're typing in information. Also, verify member picture as well. So within this, basically, what we'll do is it will prompt you to take a look at the picture that may show up on the member card, because you can apply a member photograph to a member card and then have them, printed off and laminated and so on like that. And then you can make sure that any kind of use of a member on the system they'll be prompted to check the ID of the member. And so that gives you an idea of some of the different things that are available pertaining to members. Now, coming over to Members VIP, just a really quick recap here. We took a look at member group setup. This is where basically you take your members, you group them into different classifications of members, such as seniors and students and VIPs and stuff like that. And then all of the perks that pertain to it as well in terms of tax exemptions, auto-applying coupons, specific price leveling as well, and also points rate pertaining to client retention programs. We also took a look at company setup as well. So within here, what you can do is actually have a whole bunch of members who apply to the same company, have all of their transactions billed to the company, and you can build a company on a monthly basis rather than all those individuals. We also took a look at delivery zone setup. So within here, you can apply different zones. This all has to do with deliveries. And so this way, this prevents all of your drivers from scattering all over town. You can actually assign driver A to do the east side of town and driver B to do the west side of town, that kind of thing. And then we also took a look at member browser as well. This is where you can take your member information and export it out for things such as marketing campaigns and so on. So let's get into member setup. Now, when we get into member setup, you'll notice that the first thing that shows up is this particular window right here, and it's actually a search window rather than showing you all the different records. Now, the reason being is that any clients who are aggressively using their member programs and different different member features and functionality within the system, we will accumulate a fairly large database over a period of time. And if the system is live and someone decides to go into this, it could actually slow down the system a little bit if they have to load up 20,000 members just so that a guy can look at Tom Smith in his record within the back office. So what we offer here is the ability to do the search without having to pull in the entire database table right up front. And so within this, we have, first of all, search by. You'll see within here we've got a lot of things that we've put into it that you can search for a member for, including any portion of their name, where they live, email address, and so on like that. So there's a fair bit that you can retrieve them by. We've expanded on this quite a bit from what it used to be. And then in here, this is where you go about putting in the search criteria. Last name, I can put in D-U-N-L-O-P, and I'll come up with all of the members whose last name will contain Dunlop in it, for example. Or I can put in D-U-N, or just a D, for example, and it will filter accordingly. There's the search button to commit the search. Also, if you really don't care, just select on Show All, and there's all of the members in the database. Now, coming into this, you'll notice that the first one that showed up was actually this one here, Member Default, and I'm just going to focus on this one just for a moment here. Now, across the top, I have all of these different tabs that pertain to that member record. And if I go into Member Info, I'm now onto the information as far as the name and the address and so on like that, the main information for this member. Now, excuse me, within the Member Default record, it's important that if you are going to apply any default information, this is the record to do it in, and don't do anything else to this record because it is kind of hard-coded to be the default information for this. Now, what you can put within here, for example, let's say that the restaurant is located in the city of Chicago. So what I can do is I can come down here to where we have city, and I can put in Chicago. And I can save this record. So that means that any subsequent member records that I bring up on the screen that I'm going to put in member information on, it will default to the city of Chicago. And I can put in the appropriate state and other things like that as well. Now you can actually change this as you go in putting in the new information on a new record. You don't have to do that, but it can default to, for example, the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, for example. City and state are usually, and one country as well, are the three fields that you would really look at for putting in default information. Do not try to do partial information on any of these either, such as an area code within the phone numbers, because that just messes things up. And actually it will lock you in. It will say, hey, it's not a valid record, and I'm just going to jam up on this thing. So don't try to put in like an area code on a phone number or anything like that. But good ones to put in would be the city, the state, and the zip code as well, or province and postal code, depending on where you happen to be. Okay, but that gives you some information on that. Just leave the rest of it as it is, and it will be fine. It will be fine like that. Right? I'm not going to change that, though. All right, coming back to my search, and I've got all my things in here. So I'm going to select on Scott Dunlop. Really great fella. And so within here, I'll select on Member Info, and let's take a look at what we've got in his record. First of all, I have the salutation. There's lots of different salutations you can choose from on this. First name, last name, self-explanatory. In here, notice I've got group, okay, so I can actually assign Scott to a specific group right off the bat. All right, coming down below, if applicable as well, you've got the company field, and so we've got a company field that can be populated within there. None of this is mandatory other than the name and their home phone number. Anything else, you can change that around. However, remember, just as I just showed you within policies, you can actually force certain fields within here to be mandatory. Coming down below that, we've got some address information, city, state, and so on like that. Unit number, buzzer code as well, depending on if they're condominiums or apartments or anything like that. Country, home and business phone numbers, cell phone as well. Cell phone is really good in here in the event that you need to do any form of texting to them as well. Also coming down below that, we've got card number. Now if I try to change the card number just within this field, I can't do it. What I need to do is assign card number. Now you only use card numbers if you are going to actually use member cards for this. And so the member cards, you just select on this, you swipe the card through, and then that card number will be applied within there. And then from that point on, if the member does present their card, you can swipe it through the card reader on the station, and that will retrieve this record. Reference number, just for reporting purposes, and also email address. Very important if you're also going to use this for things such as marketing campaigns, and also for web-based ordering, because we do look for that kind of information there. Coming over to the right-hand side, the first thing we have here is gift certificate. Now, this whole area right here pertains to the setting of a balance on this particular member record. Now, right now, you'll see within here I've got a credit limit of $500. Now, and this is not checked. What this means is that the owner of the restaurant is a friend of mine, and he has given me $500 credit towards my account. So what I can do is I can go in, I can sit down, I can dine, and so on like that. As long as my member record is applied to the transaction, I have the option of paying for this on account. Now, on account means just bill me. And so what I can do is then they'll pay for it on account. I'll pay for it just like a credit card in that a slip will print off with the allowance for a charge tip as well. And I can sign that, and then that will be popped into the till, and it'll be processed through just like a credit card, other than it's not going to the bank. It's actually just going through the internal credit system within PixelPoint that's using the credit check system. But what will happen then is down below, my credit limit will change, as will my balance. The balance will show what I actually owe on that as well. Right now it's $0 and $500, so if I spent $250, I have $250 and $250 within credit limit and balance respectively. And so that being said, I now owe the establishment $250. When it comes time for me to actually pay it, then I come in, you open up an empty check, and on here you go into the finish screen, pay on account, and from there I will give you $250, let's say in cash or credit card, whatever it happens to be. In any case, you pay for $250 on an empty check and apply that on account. So what it will do then is actually take that off, and then it will return you back to the transactions finish screen, and then from there it will say negative $250, and then from there I pay you whatever that that amount, either in cash or credit card, or split of the two if need be. In any case, then it will be just a plain transaction, and it pays off that balance. It picks up all the totals, and everything's back the way it was before. Now, is gift certificate means that the money that I show within here is actually a prepaid balance, and it works just a little bit differently in the system. The way it shows right now is that I consume now and I pay later. Okay, that's on account. If this was checked, then that means that what I've done is I've gone in and I've purchased a gift card. Now remember that gift card purchases are handled through the front end. You go into the finish screen, down at the bottom there's that button for gift card or gift certificate. You select on that, it brings up the wizard, and you walk through that process I showed you in an earlier session to go about paying for a gift card, for buying a gift card. And then what that does, that applies that balance to that member record, whether there's a name associated to it or not. But in any case, if I have that check right now, that means that this is a prepaid $500 balance that I have paid for, and this is actually applied through a gift card. And as I go about doing transactions, let's say I had a $250 dinner again, then this would not show credit limit 250, balance 250. What it would show is credit limit 250, and that's it. So what it does, it basically takes that $500 and starts depleting the money off of it, because I'm using that kind of like a house credit card, so to speak, and it's a prepaid balance. Now, as I get down, I can also go through the same process as I use for paying on account, like for paying, I come in to pay my balance and so on. You can use that same process on a prepaid gift card as well, in which case then what you're doing is replenishing the balance on it as well. The system will actually prompt you, is this a gift card payment or is this a regular on-account payment, as you go through that process, just to help identify that as well. Also, we have down here, do not solicit. You may recall within the last session, I just briefly showed you here where we can go about exporting all of our member information for marketing purposes and so on like that. If this little checkbox is checked, then there is actually a filter in there for do not export records that have do not solicit on there. And so if I had that checked, that would affect what shows up in that other application. Coming down below that, we have pictures. So within here, you can take a picture of the person or download one maybe from a flashcard or whatever it happens to be, any way of getting their image onto the system. And boom, you can pop it within here. And you'll see within this, we've got print VIP card, for example. So if you do have the equipment set up to actually do that, it will actually take my swipe information and the associated track information as far as my name and so on like that, just to retrieve this record along with this picture, and it can print all of that off on that card. Check with the certified device list within the MyPower website pertaining to detailed information on this. All right, coming down below that, we have delivery zone. I identified this as well, so as far as whether I'm in the east part of town or west part of town, that's really good for my deliveries. And then we have some date information as well. Member since, okay, so when this record was created, this is the date it was created on, and I can actually adjust that around by selecting on that as well, or just editing the information within here. Also, we have expiry date. Now, expiry date will default to about 20 years into the future, but what you can do actually is set a very specific date on this as well. It can be 1 year, for example, from the member since date, in which case then, if this was like, let's say, an exclusive club, and I had, I charged, $500 per member to be a member of my club, then I can put on actually an expiry date on this, and this membership record will expire at that given date when it arrives, unless, of course, they come in and they give me another $500 for another year. So you can put that in there. Now, what will happen is that the record will still be active on the system, but you will not be able to apply any form of client retention program or form of credit on it until that is actually rectified. Coming down below that, we have anniversary date, just self-explanatory, same with birth date as well. All right, now you'll notice that we've got a new tab here showing up. You may or may not have it depending on how you set your policies, called Ship To. Now within Ship To, what you can do is have multiple addresses on a per member basis as well. Now one very good example of this is, let's say that Scott Dunlop happens to be a pharmaceutical rep. Okay, so I sell pharmaceuticals. And one thing I do is I go to doctor's offices and I say, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take you and your staff out for lunch, or take you bowling, or whatever it happens to be, and or I'll order in a lunch for you, for pickup or delivery or something like that. And in which case, then I can actually have different clients within here, and I can set up as far as the name of the client, who the contacts are, what the address is, and so on. And when you go about selecting on a delivery or a pickup, well, let's go with delivery. So I'm going to do a delivery for Scott Dunlop. But Scott Dunlop has identified, no, it's not going to go to my home address. I want it to go to XYZ client, for example. Then they will actually, within the front end, be able to select on Ship To, because that tab will show up, and they will see within here XYZ client. We select on that. Okay, and here's all the information I would hopefully have within here to be able to make a delivery to that client. And by selecting on that and then processing the transaction that way, then the Ship To information will actually show up as the member address within the transaction. Along with this, you can create additional ones as well, so you can have a long list of all these different ones, so I can do that. It's also really good, though, if you have, for example, members who have both a home address and a work address, and they like to have pizzas delivered to one or the other, depending on when it happens to be, so you can have multiple addresses in that case as well. The next thing we have here is notes. Now, within notes basically is information that will not, first of all, the comment will not show up on any form of printout or be visible to the client. But this is all pertinent information that I may want my staff to know. So if that is the case, you can have this information in here, and that will be made available to the staff so they can know very pertinent things. Coming down to directions, I can type in directions to make a delivery to his home address. Now within here, the delivery, or the directions basically, they will show up within the printout as well when I'm doing a driver delivery printout. And what will happen is this will also assist the driver, so that if he's heading down a country road and it's kind of dark and he's got mailboxes and trees and not much else, then I can say it's the third mailbox down with the pink balloon hanging off it, or something like that. So something that would help identify as far as helping to locate that delivery client. The next thing over is stats. Now the stats information will populate itself automatically as this member is used within the system. So we have things such as the number of visits that this person's had overall, the last visit date. Now visit being this member was used within the establishment. But we also have number of deliveries, for example, when the last delivery was, what their current points allocation is. Okay, so for every cheeseburger I get 10 points. I've got 100 points on here, so those 100 points will show up right in there. And maybe 6 months ago I redeemed 15 points for a 10% discount or something like that. So it will show as far as how many points I've also used on this as well, and then the total points accumulation being current points plus used points. We also have history in here. Now take a look at history. This looks a lot like the log, the back office log that we took a look at in a previous session as well. So within here, this will break down all information pertaining to today's transactions for this member, the last 30 days, the last 60 days, and also within a date range as well that you can specify. And so within here, if there's any information, here's a transaction, for example, then I've got down below that, I've got payment details and transaction details. Now if I expand on transaction details, this will give me information as far as what was within that particular transaction that I've got up on the screen. Now, for those from a technical background, what we're looking at here are two bits of records here. This here is POS header database table information. Okay, POS header is the primary transaction database table within PixelPoint. And associated to that is the detailed transaction detail information, which is POS details. So POS header, POS detail. And this will show the transactions itself, like one line per transaction. And then down here, I've got all the guts that go into each transaction. And in this particular case, I've got transaction number 2026. And within here, within 2026, these are the items that were ordered on that transaction. Now we also have payment details as well. Payment details pertain to the payment of that transaction. And this comes down to the database table, again for the technical guys, of the how paid database table. Okay, so POS header, POS detail, how paid. These are the three main tables for any given transaction. And in here, this has all the payment information in terms of what was done, what was applied. And if there was split tendering, you would have multiple records in here as well. Now, we also have this other filter here that says payments on account. Very useful thing. So here, I'll just squish these up again. And I'll skip on over here to payments. Oh, hang on. Payments on account. Now, payments on account within here, I can go, what payments has he done within the last 30, 60, or whatever date range on this. Of course, I haven't made any payments on my account, but if I had, those payments would show up within here. Remember, the payments are where you open up an empty transaction, go to the finish screen, make your payments, and so on. And so they would be showing up within here. The last tab we have is Advanced. And coming over to Advanced, you'll see on a per member basis, first of all, I can do tax exemptions on here. So I am the president of some African country, and I'm here as a delegate, and I'm exempt from paying federal tax. So, you can have me in there like that. I can select on it, and that tax will be automatically exempt from any transactions with my member record applied to it. Also, use member settings as well. Use member settings means use all of the regular member settings that you've got within the system. I can uncheck this, in which case then it will just default to what normally is. But if I want to apply it, I can select on that, and it will take the programming that I've applied within here. So you can just quickly toggle back and forth between the two. And then finally, we have tax exempt numbers. So if this person is tax exempt for any reason, then you can also have a tax exemption number or a GL number relating to tax exemption applied within here as well for reporting purposes. And that is member setup. Okay, so we've got off everything within members pretty well. So I'm now going to skip on over to